By the way, did you see that website that compares all the different, well, most of the common Lisp JSON libraries?
No, but let's bring that up today.
Very comprehensive resource if you want to get to know what to use for whatever project. I'll
So
post it in the chat, then you can talk about it if you want.
that's a good idea.
They are posted.
So today we're going to be, welcome to another Common Lisp Study Group. This is Ron Batum with Atlanta Functional Programming. Today we're going to be continuing our discussion of web development in Common Lisp. Particularly, we're going to still finish off our exploration into the ningle micro framework. I'm also going to be introducing to you a very nice JSON streaming library that I've been playing around with called JSON Streams. It's a more recent JSON parsing library. As you probably heard Michael Fiano earlier, there is a couple of sites that we can go through that compare some of the JSON libraries, but without further ado, let's just get right to it. Let me just share my screen here, my Emacs buffer. Let's begin. So last time that we talked about ningle, there was a couple of mistakes that I wanted to kind of clear up, in particularly things related to posts not kind of working the way it was supposed to be. And this is partially due to my kind of misunderstanding with some of the outputs that the ningle library kind of makes in terms of basic assumptions in both the request response types that I thought I'd at least correct before we continue our discussions today. So it turns out that for posts, even puts in that takes in a string, if you don't specify the response type as so in your response header information, you could specify the actual content type in your response header. Well, by default, the ningle will return text/HTML, and we can actually see this if we leverage curl's verbose command. So I'm going to just show here, and this time I'm going to make sure that when I open up my shell, because my apologies, for some reason C shell doesn't really work the way I kind of expect it to. So I'm going to switch over to bash here. And let me also load up my project. So if we go into our example earlier, let's say the say2 example, which is just a simple get, and we don't specify anything as arguments, because it's using wildcard arguments here. What it does behind the scenes here is you can see the request coming in, saying that it's been accepted. It returns, and right here in the content type, the text/HTML is the default, and with character set Unicode. This is important because some of the stuff that we were trying to send in the last episode were actually Lisp objects, so we had to actually convert them into strings. So the simplest thing that you could do, and I just went ahead and did this. I'll check this into the repository now that I gotten these all corrected. Was just use format with the nil parameter, which will convert the entire Lisp objects into a string, because it will be converted in this format specifier ~a, where it determines what the base format is and just spits it out. So when we look here again in say2, we're getting the cause and splats that we're familiar with, and it will go ahead and localhost is in. This seems to be here. So okay, hold on. I had this problem last episode, so give me a second. I may have to switch over to an actual terminal. Let me do a full application window, and do this again. Control-V, say hello world. Okay. So you can see right here in the last line in the return type, we just went ahead and spit out hello world. And that relates to the splat parameter that's in the associated list. Now you can certainly change that response type. Ningle actually provides a instance for each request of the HTTP request object and the HTTP response object. And I will go ahead and show you what you can do to simply change this type here so that it says text/plain. These request and response objects are actually instances of the lower level LAC library request and response objects, which I encourage you guys to take a look at. But for now, I'll just simply show you what we're going to actually update it with. And so I later on actually did this for a different list, but you can see here it's a pretty simple setf on the response headers. Now, to reference this, of course, since I'm not actually doing a use on Ningle, I have to go and reference the Ningle library directly. And then what you do is you just simply append to this list, because this response headers is actually an associative list of key value pairs, where the key is the HTTP header key and the response is the value for that header key. Most of them are just going to be strings. So in this case, if we wanted to just say that this is text.plain, we just go ahead and do a list content type, and we specify text/plain. We recompile, and if we go back to our terminal here, and we go ahead and do hello world, you see suddenly we went from HTTP text HTML character set UTF-8 to being text plain. There are plenty of other things you could do with the headers. I mean, it's just a standard header list from the HTTP specification. So I encourage you to look at the HTTP specification for that. But it gives us some abilities to actually go in and do even some checks inside of our requests to actually verify, for example, that the request object that's being passed in, the body will, for at least posts, contain, say, application JSON, or even application XML if you wanted to use an XML parsing library. So this is kind of very useful to make a more fully robust web service that can handle specific cases and filter out those. The other correction that I wanted to mention is from last week that I at least want to bring up today is the accept header. My mistake on the accept header, for folks who are familiar with the HTTP specification, what the accept header on a request is basically telling you is that the client is accepting those types. It's not an acceptance on the server side. So it's a little different. You could see this when we actually call, say, this test acceptance. Obviously, we're right now not passing anything in here, but it's going to, this will allow us to at least see that if we pass in, say, in our header content type application / say XML, I think it's actually text XML, and we call this web service, you see that it's being ignored by the web server because there isn't a service that actually I take that back. it's not a content type, it is accept. So you see that it couldn't find a request that actually can return text.xml. But if we go and change this to application/JSON, it'll return us this test JSON object that I created, which will go into detail later on. A couple things, as you can see here, what I did is since these are these request and response objects are per HTTP request, one thing I've adopted, and this is something that I wanted to discuss as a topic of discussion, is doing, we do setfs here. And I'm doing multiple setfs, but I wasn't sure if I could just simply do like the first, can I just simply combine these into a single setf where this is a
Sure.
Okay, so.
Why not? I mean, yeah, setf accepts key value pairs. So, the place, the value, the place, the value, etc.
So let's go ahead and do that because space case slurp, I think, is forward. Yeah, that's it. There we go. It's not, this looks kind of wrong. Let me see something here. My slurping is, wrong one. What I want to do is slurp on here. Dang it. Okay. Screw it. I'm just gonna do it the way I know, which is unbalancing the parentheses for the time being, because I think I messed up a bunch of ones. Yes, I did. Okay.
Oh, yeah, I could show you how to do that a little easier sometime.
All right. Yeah, that would certainly help. Thank you. Do this. And
for the last one, you can do unwrap, capital W for the Lisp state.
Okay. Yeah, there we go. This should work now. And boom. All right. So that looks much cleaner. And it's still, and you can see very clearly what the header, the place and value is based on this generic expander. There's I wanted to actually show, but I wasn't sure how to jump to definition. Let me see if I can do this. Sly navigation. Yeah, he doesn't take me to the lack one. He takes me to a special convenience one that he wrote. Okay, let me go back to the pop-up from definition. Okay. I encourage you guys to look at QuickDocs, especially on lack, to get more information on the response and the request. They are pretty standard request and response objects, matching as much as they can to what's already available in the HTTP specification. Just to see if I have this open. I do have it open. Excellent. So this is an example of LAC's request object. It contains the method, script name, path info, URI, gives you some raw body, some information regarding the content length. Depending upon what you need from this, I encourage you to go and explore and check out where appropriate this library. And again, since this is a struct, this is not a class. The name of getting each of the individual, and this is just a review for folks who haven't played with structs much. It starts with the object. The accessors are the object name dash the member name. So in order to
unless it specifies conc name nil.
Yeah, unless it
doesn't here.
Right. That's right. And so in this case, if you want to get the query string, it'll be request query string, or the raw body's request raw body, and so forth. So just keep that in mind. Don't take this as being the names that you access the object instance from, because that will throw you off if you're getting started with just using Lisp in general, but structs specifically in Lisp. The other thing I wanted to show you is the lack response object, which also includes some information regarding, say, for example, if you wanted to check the status, which we were setting the status earlier, so this is not too much of an issue. Additionally, the header information and so forth. Now, every web service usually has some sort of response object and has to specify some sort of type on that response object, be it the default that I mentioned before, which was text HTML, or what we saw earlier when I changed our say get method to have a response of text plain.
Can I just make a quick comment?
Sure, go ahead.
Just to the viewers out there, I know you're just copying the examples from ningle and getting to know how it works and everything, but you shouldn't use sharp sign quote when you write a lambda expression. You should write lambda. The reason why is because lambda is also a macro, but it's also a function too, and the macro does the right thing. The function like that will not always do the right thing, and plus it's simpler to write. Why
so you're saying just do this?
Twisting your fingers when you don't have to. Yeah. Just for the viewers out there, you should never use sharp sign quote. Never when you write a lambda. A lot of old code makes use of that. I'm not sure why. I think it's partly because the standard included the macro lambda a little late. So a lot of the books out there include the sharp sign quote. But, the macro lambda is in the standard, and it's better. Just use it, please. You'll save yourself some troubles in certain edge cases.
I hate to say it, this is from habit more so than anything. So I have to get used to doing sharp sign quote, but let me just do something here. I am going to quit Slack here. Okay. So one of the types of responses that you can return from a web service obviously is JSON. Everyone knows the JavaScript object notation. It's fairly well documented and hopefully well understood for folks who's been playing with web services these days. But in Common Lisp, there are a plethora of JSON like libraries to choose from. So which one should you choose when you're actually playing around writing, your web services in Common Lisp? So Michael sent this nice little.
And by the way, if you re-indent your lambda forms, they'll look better now.
Thank you. Let's see here.
2 spaces instead of 4.
I think my default is already.
No, just do equals a.
Yeah, that's what I just did. Equals Shift G, and it says arguments are out of range. Hold on, let me see something here. Something is not right. I think it's this one. No, it can't be this one. This is all.
What do you have, a misbalanced paren somewhere?
It says arguments are out of range. This happens occasionally when I'm doing a lot of heavy editing, so it forces me to have to restart Sly, I guess it was, or Aquamax.
Try GG equals capital G.
GG.
That'll format the whole buffer. Wow. Okay. I'm not sure then. I haven't used SpaceX in a while. Could be just a bug.
Yeah, it's a bug. I probably have to go and update my SpaceMax distribution. I haven't recently.
Okay, forget it then.
But Yeah, it's a weird issue that I know the real fix is for me to essentially kill the buffer or quit Emacs, restart it, and then it will Spacemax will correct itself. But if I'm doing
Oh, you
heavy
could try
editing,
revert buffer then. Revert buffer may fix it for you.
okay,
You'd have to save the buffer first though, because that will reset it to the file on disk.
okay,
So make sure it's saved before you run that.
and quit. Okay, it's saved, so it's slide revert buffer, isn't it?
No, it's just space revert buffer. Yep. Hit yes.
Okay.
And now try it.
Arguments out of range. Killed.
Okay, wow. Must be like a global space mix
Yeah.
issue. It's only resolved during initialization. That's strange.
Yeah, that happens on occasion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Without wasting any more time, you were saying about the JSON libraries.
Yeah. So let's go back to this awesome thing that you sent us. So I will go ahead and post this as part of the video once we're done with our stream. But there's this really nice report that I don't know who wrote this. I'm gonna assume his name is something Sabra. So
JSONSTREAMS is in there at the end. I saw. What's it say about that? That's the one you were going to talk about, right?
yes,
JSONSTREAMS.
yes, JSONSTREAMS is the one that we're going to be talking about today. I'm bringing this up to folks just to merely let you know that there's this nice little comparison of the many different libraries that are available and are in active or somewhat completed state for parsing JSON. One of which is the JSON Streams library, which we'll be going over today. This is a fairly nice, fairly simple library that essentially leverages associative lists to construct.
Oh, it says it's slower than everything except for CLJSON at decoding.
This is slower?
Yeah, it's one of the slowest ones it's talking about, yeah.
It says that CLJSON, it's faster than CLJSON, and I've been using CLJSON, so it's definitely an improvement.
Yeah, that's the only one it beats. That's what it's saying anyway. I don't know if times have changed since 2017.
So I can't say that it's slow because I came from CLJSON, and CLJSON is pretty slow.
That library is just horrible. When you have some free time and you want to just be dumbfounded, take a look at what it does with the mop to produce these. I forgot what they're called, but it's a class that has every single slot of every JSON object. It's just insane, like how they utilize the mop for that. It's completely pointless. It's crazy. Just take a look at it sometime. You'll probably scream in horror.
Oh, geez. Okay. Folks who are watching this stream, yeah, I am not encouraging you to look at it, but I'm encouraging you to look at it, just because, it might be a case study on what not to do in certain cases, So JSON Streams in general is a fairly simple library. It is slower, like he mentioned. There are other ones out there like JSON and STJSON. I have to go through some of them just to find out which ones are more complete than others, just because
for most projects, I kind of like JSON.
JSON, okay.
Yeah, it's listed on that site. It's a very fast one.
JSON.
It has a nice API that I've come to get familiar with. I mean, I've used pretty much all of them. I just go back to JSON more than the others.
JSON, okay, got it. All right. But yeah, this is kind of what I've seen too. Like a lot of these libraries, folks, they almost all of them, at least from the examples that I've encountered just before I ended up using JSON Streams, they almost all do this compilation from an associative list. they don't try other data structures to actually go and convert to and from JSON. So you take a JSON object, and if you're going JSON to JSON and it's converting it into a string, it'll go ahead and then take this associative list that you provided. The key is going to be like, usually it's :object, and the value is going to be your associative list of all the key value pairs that you want as part of the library, and it will convert it accordingly. So let's look at an example here. Now, mind the print statements. This is just so that the JSON code will return to the buffer. Let me do one thing here before we execute some of this. All right. JSON streams usually starts with you specifying a output stream to take in a JSON object instance that it's creating, and then it will dump to the output stream. Fairly straightforward. If you specify nil, this acts like format in that it will convert it to a string and then dump the string. As you can see, you could specify different types of encoders to the stream output library. In this case, I'm basically saying take all key value pairs and just lowercase them. By default, if we execute this, you'll see that the string downcased or downcased essentially. Actually, you know what? Let me just double check this. I think it's this that it downcases, right? Yeah. It will string downcase actually downcase your key encoder, but what it does is if you don't by default specify indentation, it will go ahead and dump it as a single line, no new lines at all. So it's not prettified. Obviously, for folks who are used to reading JSON, and now I don't encourage you to do this because there are extra bytes than in your JSON object if you pass it across the wire.
That key encoder, that isn't that like, I'm not sure how JSON, like, that could be dangerous, right? Like, that just converts the string in the JSON output.
It
like
does
if you had like two different keys that were the same name but different case.
Yeah, this will make it case insensitive. This will make them the same key, which is definitely dangerous. I'm not encouraging this. I'm just saying that you could specify different key encoders. So look into the library in terms of
curious.
Yeah. But if we go ahead and run this by default, you'll go ahead and get a nice prettified JSON object that we're all familiar with the proper escape on the quotations. But again, I'm going to mention this. Don't do this for complex objects, and don't definitely do this if you're planning on sending. Well, do it for debugging, but once you're kind of comfortable with your object, if you're sending it across the wire, the no indentation will save you several bytes in your payload.
By the way, if you change that print to print C, it should look better.
Thank you.
To the indented one.
Yeah, let me just do this. Hold on.
Oh, you might have to flush a new line though.
Yeah.
But yeah. Oh, yeah, you're gonna have to flush lines in between. But
yeah, I do have to flush lines. Care pre. Okay. There we go. Better. Now, the JSON Stream library comes with several very nice convenience functions for dealing with things like JSON arrays, different complex members. Like, for example, if you want to add like a list with let's say another object that contains like address information, you can use what they call the output A list. And the way I usually output A list Yeah, that's the one. And this will then allow you to take in a set of key value pairs. And it will go ahead and let's say the state is city is Atlanta. State is Georgia. Zip code is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And we'll create, oops, did I miss something here? Yeah, I may have. Let me just make sure.
If that's considered an A list such that the CDRs are atoms,
Yeah.
that's not going to do what you expect. Those are lists, so the CDR.
Right. I have to go. I have to
might
make
need a dot between. It depends how it expects it.
Yeah. It might be that I have to make them into proper dotted pairs. Just do that. Okay, you know what? Fine, I'll cons them. That will help it.
Oh, well, that's not going to change anything.
Yeah, well, oh, yeah, that's because I just do this, right? I could do...
oh, I see what you're trying to do.
It's going to be a list of dotted pairs, so I'm hoping that this should work.
JSON, right error, expected, end object string got begin object. Yeah, looks like the syntax is wrong there. I'm not sure how that is. I'd have to go look.
Oh, I know what it is. It's because I'm making an object within an object. I should be saying that there's this is not output member. This should be with the JSON member. Sorry.
Oh.
Like this. Boom. That's what I was. Okay, hold on. So you can see that this is another sub object, right? So when you want sub objects in JSON streams, you need to specify, oh, by the way, this is another object by using with JSON member, not JSON output member. JSON output member is just a key value pair. It's not a list of key value pairs. That's something I got burned with before when I was playing around with this library earlier today, and I forgot about it to go back and look at the documentation. Let me do this. You could also do things like, say, JSON streams with JSON array. Okay, and let's say that we specify. I think I could just do this. It's what is it? JSON streams, JSON output ping list, and let's do actually, yeah, let's do this. Home. We need to specify obviously a key here. Let's say that they have phone numbers. Okay. Type home number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0. Okay. Now if we go ahead and do this, and again, what I did is I messed up. Let's see. What did I mess up with? Yes.
I would say that you probably have to do with JSON member, and
Yeah.
then with JSON array is just the array.
You might be right. Let's do that.
Just a guess.
JSON member. Okay. There we go. to show that off. And now you have an array, a JSON array that is a set of sub objects. I mean, I could keep going here, but I think this is good enough. For more complex scenarios, you might want to leverage the creating your own stream object. I can't seem to think of right now of an example off the top of my head, but from what I read in the documentation earlier today, which I'm going to just report to you guys, there is an example of the streams interface usage in stringify.lisp in the library that you could see in its entirety on GitHub. And I encourage folks who are looking into that to see for that example for some of their more complex use cases. But for the most part, for most day-to-day stuff, what I've just kind of presented here is good. Now, you don't need to actually use plist here. You can actually even specify kind of dumb things here, like just to show you, you should be able to do, I think this, and this should work. And Shift-G, there is nothing in here. Why? That is weird. That should have worked because but causing that to be there is kind of weird. Okay, I'm going to keep a note of that just so I can go back and revisit it later. But let's go on. So when will you want to use this? This is kind of what I wanted to bring up. Well, there's two things. One is taking in JSON input. The other is returning JSON input. Now, I've already kind of took an earlier example, and I copied here into a global variable, a test JSON. So let's just go into here. This is a simple string, just to represent maybe a potential payload that's being passed in into a web service. To grab this, you simply and more importantly, use it inside your code. You call JSON stream parse, JSON parse on the string object, and it will return to you an associated list, which we could see right here. Again, this is a key value pair. It's where the key is object, the value is this associated list, this list of concells, where the car is the key in the object and the cutter is the actual value of the object. This is the reason why this is useful to know is you can then leverage what we were using in the last episode, ASOC, to go and capture the object themselves and just return it even. So let's go through just a quick example of how this might occur. So what you can do is let's say, let's take this example right here, which is taking in a post on some test function. And let's call it test create, just to be, more complete in our REST lingo. Test slash, let's say, test object. Let's say that we're creating some dummy object that this could be any sort of resources. It could be a collection of, say, records or students or whatever. And we're passing in, just the name and value. In fact, let's go ahead and call it that. Let's say that we're creating a new persons object that consists of the name, the first name, last name, and maybe any even age. This will be passed in as a parameters object, which we can then see by parsing. If I remember correctly, it's going to be just the object name, if I'm not mistaken. But you know what? I'm going to go and double check what happens here. Just to spit this guy out, let me pull up our example here that's taking in application JSON, calling it persons. Let's say the data is. Oh, can you guys see this anymore? Yeah, I have to go and change this. Yeah, I just noticed that. Give me a second. Let me switch it over. Okay. And switch over back to this. And let's do first name, last name. Okay, so let's see what gets picked out. So this is object accept. Okay, so what we would have to do is we'd have to first change this to, hold on a second. I think I just saw a question in this stream. I may have just been not paying attention on it. 1 second. Yes, 1-1. It is a real live stream. If you have questions, please ask away, not only on this topic, but anything Common Lisp related, and we will answer it as we go through. So given what I see here, let me go ahead and do, I think what I have to do is do let. Okay. OBJ being the JSON streams, JSON parse, the first of the header of the object. No, not the, I may not have to even do first. Let me do this. I just think I can do this as object on the params. That's all I think I need to do. And let's go ahead and slurp this code. So now let me just make sure that it's all here. Yeah. And let's just go ahead and do an echo of this. See what happens when I do a JSON streams, JSON stringify, which for folks, this is what you would use if you're constructing the object and you're trying to pass it over the wire. I don't think there's a, or you can also use what I, if you want to just create a JSON object with the with JSON object macro and you didn't want to spit it out to an output, this is what you would use to actually go ahead and stringify the code. So let me see. Oh, I'm a moron. Okay. This guy should be the header of the association of grabbing the object. Okay, let's see what happens here. I know that, yes, this is getting a nil because this is probably not giving us the right object, the list. Let me check that again. What was it? Source must be a string or a character, but that no. And
do a print obj right after you're landing there, and then call it again.
yeah, that's a good idea. Okay.
Or you can look at the params. Well,
What?
I was gonna say in the call stack you already had params in there that you could look at.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Let me try that again. Okay. So here you meta.
Yeah, if you go to the third function down is that one right there.
Okay. Ooh, that's wrong. That's odd. Why is is it the car? It might be the car. Hold on a second. That's weird. That should be.
It looks like it's not even a association list or a p list or anything. It's just like a list of.
Well, it said that. I mean, if you look at the output here that was echoed out earlier when we dumped the pro, object is one of the things that was there. So I'm just kind of. I'm not sure what. Let me see if this works. Let's see. Okay.
Yeah, can I see the params again?
Yeah, that's what I was looking for. Huh.
Yeah, because that looks like.
But that's different than what was being spit out by params earlier.
Really?
Yeah. So let me show you before.
Well, before you were using print C, which gets rid of some of the formatting. But not the nesting, so.
Yeah, but it doesn't even have like the whole objects
Let me do this.
thing. Unless
just do print.
Okay, print. Okay.
Yeah, so we can see the actual Lisp data.
Okay, so, and let me quit out of this and see what it provided above.
Of that huge backtrace. Okay.
JSON parse. I try to put something. Weird. Okay. Let me go ahead and do this one more time.
Oh, where's the response?
Yeah. Let's see this one more time. Okay. And I can actually now go and scroll up to where, here we go.
Okay.
Huh. Interesting. I'm wondering, did it like try to do like if I did print, did that actually find out that this is some sort of object itself? And then, let me see. This would be really weird if that's the case.
No, it's just a list.
Well, earlier it said object, and I was just wondering where that object came from.
Object is just a symbol in the list, just to delimit the JSON object.
Yeah, it's not there at all.
Yeah, that may have been just. So I don't need this. I don't need this at all. I could just do.
Oh, it looks like you'd be getting like the car of the car at that point. That's a weird looking list.
Yeah, that is weird. But as I've been playing around with this, I have noticed. Hold on. Let me do this. There we go. I have noticed some weird things with how this library handles more importantly, actually, Clack handles the parsing of parameters. It's a little interesting. It doesn't do what I thought like Hunchintooth does. It does some additional abstraction to construct those two objects I mentioned earlier, the request and response objects in the LAC library. That's weird. Okay, got compiled. There we go. It actually worked this time. So if we then send age as well, let's just make sure This is our echo 3. Yep, there we go. So it's actually is that list. That's weird. I have to go and look into this. This doesn't look right. But the other way of actually grabbing this is by looking at the request body directly, which I may sometimes it sometimes will look cleaner, but I don't know. Like right now, if you noticed in this this params object, which I'll print out again. This is the other weird thing about this that I'm scratching my head on, just as I've been going through this library. Sorry, I have to, so I can actually see my rebel line here. If I go to, if I try doing this, if you noticed, odd.
Can you do a V, a dash V with that?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so. Huh.
I mean, it's doing the right thing, I think. It accepts content link, content type is.
Oh, that's because you're using post. Okay.
Yeah, that's why. What were you thinking I was using? Get or put or?
Oh, well, I was just looking at the request content type and how it's not JSON, but that doesn't matter because that's the standard form input. You were realm code.
So if I can totally change that. That's just me going into, I think, just passing another header content type. And JSON parse error, unexpected character.
Before you exit out of that, let's see what params looks.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay, let's do that again. All right.
Yeah. So what's params look like now? I bet you it's different.
It's age. It says JSON parse age.
Yeah. So yeah, but then go to one more down. Go to your handler. Yeah. So look at params now.
It
actually got parsed out for you.
Parsed out for me.
Yeah, and now it's an association list of that JSON object.
But I didn't even specify that. That's kind of interesting. That's kind of cool.
Well, it saw that it was JSON coming in, and it looks like it already has a decoding thing for JSON coming in.
But do you notice here, though, in this list, at the very end, there are multiple accepts.
I can't tell you about that, but I can
have no idea where this is coming from, and I've just been like, "What is this?" Like it's almost like it's tagging it when it's constructing the object, and then it's like I've accepted this 4 times because that's actually the number of requests that I made to this particular URL. This
interesting.
And I'm just like
4 or 3.
That might be a bug in.
Go to the end of that line.
I made it. I made 4 requests to, and this is, I think, like the 5th one.
Oh wow! Yeah, that is strange.
And
yeah, that reads like a bug to me, but.
So, but this is nice. This is interesting. So that is, it actually does the parsing for you. Because originally, when I looked into this, I was like, I'm wondering how it will handle different content types. And I couldn't find much documentation on this. So I was playing around with it, and I noticed with the default form encoding that sometimes you saw what I showed earlier, which is, but that may have been just the printing of the object itself. It recognizing the difference between a JSON object being passed in, and then it would also give you the input in the second member of the list. So you had to do some weirdness to actually go and grab the actual JSON object itself. But then you can see that with this decoder, it still has this issue where every time you call this function, it actually keeps track of the number of times you call it. Like, I'll show you this. I didn't believe it at first, but when I did this multiple times, I saw it just being appended to the end of it. So it's just kind of weird.
Is there a way to inspect the header?
Inspect the header?
Yeah, the request header.
Yeah. We can look at the request headers. I could dump that out. Just give me a second. Just wanted to make sure that, yep, it appended another accept. Okay.
Huh. Yeah, that sounds like a bug to me too.
But
there's no way to get just one of those out.
Print ningle. Sorry, lack.request. Request headers. Yeah.
I'm just curious what this looks like because.
Okay. And let me compile that. I think it's actually in this list. Yeah, it has the host username and accept. So let's see if that's the case. Go back. And oh wait, give me a second here.
Yeah. Okay. So that's the headers right there.
Yeah, that should be the headers right there.
So it's curious, like, like how is it detecting that you made 5 requests if it's not using a keep alive connection or anything like that? What is it doing?
No freaking idea. Other than Clack might be doing some sort of internal stats that I'm unaware of in as part of its I/O layer.
Now, my guess is that there's some list that is getting modified and leaked around somewhere.
It's an interesting library, to say the least. When I found this, I was like, okay, I don't know how this is gonna work, but if
that sounds like a memory leak if I ever heard of one. Like if you're running on some production server with thousands of requests a second.
Good luck.
I'm willing to bet. I'm willing to bet it doesn't happen if you succeed through the request. I'm willing to bet it doesn't append it.
Maybe.
So like, I think it's probably there's it was not expecting the stack to unwind, and it probably did not undo something. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I get.
I'm willing to play. I'm willing to put money on that.
So
that if you did like successful requests, it would not append.
Okay, so let's do this. I will go ahead and unwrap this sucker and just assign objects to params. Although that's kind of dumb, but I'll go.
I was just gonna say, like, put a block around it and then just respond back whatever you want, and then just return.
Okay, let's do that.
Whatever is easier.
Okay, block, and I have to specify name.
Nil.
That
way you can just return.
Okay, and then at the very end here.
I was just saying, even before you do all that other junk.
Oh.
Just.
Like, that's right. Okay.
Yeah, just respond back with whatever you want, and then return.
Return. Let's say this. Okay, got it. Okay.
Well, it needs to be inside the block.
Oh, that's right. Hold on. Okay. Percent. Return. Actually, this is after that, so it has to be before, right?
Yeah. Okay. So I'll explain my thought process, and where there was a miscommunication. So my thought process was, okay, so there's this code that crashes sometimes. let's like just bail out early before it hits that code.
Yeah.
And just always return a successful response and not run that code.
Okay. So that's what I just did. This should work now. Okay. So
yeah, so maybe you run that a couple times.
Okay.
It'll just run through successfully, right? Bam, bam, bam.
But it's appending. Count
It's
3.
still... Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Wow. Yes, it is. Oh, damn. I lost my imaginary money.
I just was like, wow, what is it doing? I have no idea.
Not only is it a memory leak, but it's appending each time, which is a linear traversal through this possibly hundreds of thousands of elements.
Oh, wow. Man. I was just like, I don't know what it's thinking, but something is wrong with this data structure. It's constructing.
Yeah, on multiple accounts.
This is one of those head scratching. Really, it's head scratching as to what it's doing, and it's on the request object, mind you. It's not even in the response.
Right.
It's the request object that's getting this appended. So either they're not creating a request every time correctly. I mean, that's clack, I think. That's at this level, not hunch and tube, because my default.
With what you're doing as far as appending anything, because that whole let binding got eliminated by the compiler because it detected that you're not going to be able to get there.
Right.
So it's not what you're doing; it's internal to clack or lack.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too. I'm saying that I think clack is actually keeping track of some of these this information, and or even lack at that point, but. Regardless, and when every time a new request comes in, it checks to see if it's the same request, parses it, but it still keeps track of these accepts that are being passed in. It's just really weird. I was going to go and look into this, but this is something that I'm going to bring up to folks who are going to play around with the accept header. You don't necessarily even need this, but I just thought I would put it on because technically this also restricts to the method to only clients who can actually consume JSON or other things. If you ended up doing XML, it'll also restrict it to only those people who can consume it. But it was an oddity that I thought I'd bring up and at least show you guys. It's just really, really weird. Let's see if there are any questions in the stream. Okay, this is no, other than all right. This is kind of where I wanted to stop it and start posing some questions moving forward, and especially this is related to some of the web stuff that I want to doing with the Common Lisp. I wanted to pose especially to you, Michael, since you've done quite a bit in it. First, I guess, related to JSON libraries, I guess even though we kind of demoed this, your opinion is JSON is a faster one of all the ones that are available.
Yes. Actually, just a second. I'll answer that better in a second.
Okay. Sorry. Let me go and.
I'm gonna take this opportunity. I need to head out.
Okay.
So have a good one. Sorry.
No problem. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you look at that that website that I posted earlier,
okay.
What it says about JSON is that it's incredibly fast at decoding, so much so that he questioned whether it was actually decoding anything at all. Which is actually really important for a web server, especially if you have multiple concurrent requests at the same time. Don't want to overload the server. I think that is what I used in my recent. Oh no! Wow. So recently I used JSON when I wrote my Stripe client API.
Oh, nice.
I'm not sure why I chose that over JSON. I usually use JSON, but JSON is very fast at decoding. It's almost always what you want for a web server backend library.
Okay. All right.
Not sure what it says about JSON.
What about well, I haven't actually. Let me just show this script to folks who are watching. Share my pull this guy out so that I can share this separately from the actual YouTube stream.
But all JSON libraries, they have like some major differences as far as like how they treat nil versus null, or false versus null, and so I know at least one of them. This is very, very strange. It treats JSON objects as hash tables. Now, I forget which library this was, but there's a big problem with this, and that is that the keys are unordered. I mean, CL hash tables are unordered as far as their keys and values are concerned, but some JSON APIs expect them to be ordered, even though they're objects, they're hash maps. So that could
some JSON libraries expect the keys to be ordered, even though they're supposed to be hash tables.
Some API services do. Some, not all.
Some API services require. I did not know that.
Yeah, I've seen that before. But yeah, if they're represented as hash tables, then that might be a problem. Something to keep in mind, depending on the service you're using. But yeah, null versus false is the biggest concern mostly. Like some of them don't differentiate between nil and false, and so you gotta, treat them all as nil, and that could be a big problem. Stuff like that. They all have different trade-offs they make, especially in terms of balancing decode versus encode speed. Some of them are faster at encoding, some of them are faster at decoding, etc. There's just too many JSON libraries for Common Lisp. You gotta just pick the one that works best for whatever project you're working on.
Got it. That's good to know. It's been interesting as I've been going through this, because there's always two concerns related to web applications, right? One is kind of your backend infrastructure, especially if you're trying to do something that I'm kind of used to doing, but I know some folks in the Rails community, or even folks who are used to building more vertical stack web applications, don't like, and that is having the static site being completely HTML so that you could run it on some sort of CDN, content distribution network for fast retrieval of the site, and then you hook up into your web services. So your static site is basically a thin client to your web services API. But in Common Lisp, to do that, you would have to have something kind of lightweight, which is why I've been investigating ningle more than. And there's also, for folks who are listening, wondering if there are alternatives to ningle in terms of micro web frameworks. The other one that I've played with in the past is, and I don't know if it's still maintained, but there are some issues with it, is the REST AS service.
Restus, yes.
Yes, the Restus. I think that's created by Pavel. I'm forgetting his last name.
Pavel, I think it was.
Yeah, he wrote it as part of, and I only learned about it when I was reading his blog posts on writing web services using that. I think at one point he tried to write a book on it. I don't know.
He wrote 2 books. The second one never got finished, but the first one uses Restus 2, I believe, and that one was finished. They're both on LeanPub if you want to search for them. It's called, I think it's called Lisp for the Web.
Okay. Yeah, that's the one. Lisp for the Web. Yes, I read Lisp for the Web. It's a fairly nice book. I mean,
and there's a second book too. I forgot what that's called though, but it should still be on like the same page. Easy to find.
But this is it's a really nice way of actually structuring your code, at least. But because of that route that I wanted to go, suggestions on front-end devs, for folks who are wondering, I can't answer that at this current moment through this journey. This is actually an interesting one, to say the least, just because there's so many different ways to actually design it. And now that we have kind of modern, we have this approach with modern cloud environments to actually separate the back end from the front end in a clean fashion for maximum responsiveness of the front end. That further makes it questionable as to what is out there. Now, I will say that if WebAssembly ever takes off and becomes more and more integrated into our daily lives, there might be a day where some of our favorite common Lisp libraries or even patterns will be available as a WebAssembly application. I just don't think there's a way of doing it in a way that without doing like a transpilation layer like you would do with TypeScript that will convert it into JS, so you could have a static site written in common Lisp, but it's actually written in common Lisp and compiled to JavaScript before you actually go and post it online. So I'm hoping, doesn't look like we have any more questions coming in from the live stream. I
do have to cut it myself. I have to go eat before another live stream in a few minutes. So
okay, well, then I'll call that a day. Join us next week as we continue our web development adventure. And I'll see you guys. I'll see you, Michael, next week, and I'll see everyone on the web. Hopefully on the study group channel on either Discord or Mattermost. See you later.
Okay. See you next week. Bye.